Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of Hot Data. I'm your host, Josh Robinson. Today, I'm joined by some really cool people. Kyle and Srini are here, and we're going to talk about CDN Insights. Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing great.
Doing
Awesome.
great, Josh.
Sweet. All right. So, as we get into CDN Insights, we really want to talk about the pains, some of the value, and all the things that encompasses that. So, Kyle, can you walk us through what a bad night for a team looks like in a CDN infrastructure? Like, what
Sure.
actually is happening in that room?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I've been there a couple times in my career, so I know it intimately well. A bad night looks twofold. One, you are having a problem, and to compound that situation is that you don't know where that problem is, or sometimes you don't even know that that problem is occurring. And so the first problem you've got is that you're having a problem, but the second way to get yourself out of that is to determine where that problem is and then move forward on your ability to correct that problem. And that's why I'm so excited about the opportunity for CDN Insights to provide that initial out of the box visibility to customers who are using more than one CDN. Because as soon as you start having a problem, but you've got two CDNs, oh, hey, I can just switch to the one that's working. Which one is working? Sure. So that's
Right.
why this is fantastic.
Right. And that makes sense too. So, typically, like you said, in that room, if people don't know which CDN is working and which one is broken, typically, how long does that take? Like, how long are they flying blind before they can even start diagnosing stuff?
So of course, just like everything else, depends on a lot of factors. But what you're talking about is the distance in time from when your CDN is generating those logs to
Mhm.
bring it into either your own home run CDN log aggregator or the aggregator that you're choosing to send all of your logs to. And then the time that it takes for that system to visualize those problems and surface them on some graph.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing
Um,
I'll just add to that as well is I think historically one of the challenges has been the companies haven't had the ability to do kind of closer to near real time observability, right? So before Hydrolix, there's many teams that waited minutes for logs to arrive before they lit up a dashboard or fired off an alert. And if you imagine a football game or a basketball game that's going on and there's multiple minutes of issues that some users or a large portion of the users are facing, just to even receive the information and have the opportunity to know that there's a problem, waiting minutes is just way too long. So I think one of the nice things about what we're doing and what we've been working on historically and what we'll continue to work on is how do we just make it both much faster to figure out that there might even be a problem to begin with, help the humans as well who are in these CDN rooms make sense of it and act on it in a timely fashion. So there's kind of the data arriving side of it, and then there's kind of the human side. And I think you really need both to be as fast as possible.
Agreed. In a scenario where CDN Insights kind of comes into play, is companies who are running multiple CDNs or have multiple CDN providers. Why does that make visibility a problem, or why does it make it much harder because they have so many CDN providers?
Yeah, I can start speaking to it a little bit. I think the biggest challenge is that each CDN provider has their own tooling and their own way of looking into the data. So you can imagine if you're one of these rooms and you're running across 2, 3, 4 CDNs, that's just 2, 3, 4 at a minimum places to look to identify that there might be an issue. And that data is coming at different times, at different latencies. You have different user interfaces for each of them. So it creates just a total amount of just information overload. And this is again just to know that there might be an issue, right? Then the actual diagnosing phase and trying to figure out, confirm that you fixed the issue. It's the same kind of problem is compounded again. So I think one thing that we're really excited about is how do we actually bring all these logs together into one view? We really see that as a minimum entry. Like that is really the minimum that you need to begin to try to identify issues very, very quickly, especially in a multi-CDN environment. If your data is all over the place and your tooling's all over the place, it's just going to make it that much harder to get to the bottom of things if time to resolution is important, and it's pretty much important to every team that operates here.
That's another thing that I find really invigorating about this product that Srini and his team have built together. Because, of course, we are talking about how fantastic the Hydrolix technology is at bringing this data in and having it be very fast and having that be displayed on a single dashboard. But in addition to that, the CDN Insights product offers the understanding that the data itself has already been normalized, right? So Srini was just making reference to the fact that CDNs call it something else, or they do it some other way, or it's time to first byte, or it's time to last byte, or all of these different metrics can be overwhelming, frankly, when you have 2 or 3 different data sources to even understand. And then, oh, by the way, we've added player analytics as well. And so the fact that our CDN Insights team has gone to each of the CDNs that we're working with already and said, okay, cool, what does this log field actually measure? And then put that together and say, oh, it's this field over here and this field over here. We can put them in the same graph, 2 different lines, but we know we're talking about the same thing. I think is an and congratulations, Srini, to your team and all that work that you've put together, but I think it's an underhyped portion of this. Is it's not just technology that brings the data in quickly, it's technology that's been pre-vetted to bring the same data in quickly.
Yeah. And that kind of leads to like the next part, right? So with CDN Insights, not only is it like an out of the box solution and you can get value from it almost immediately, right? But one of the parts that we want to talk about as far as bringing in all this data from or businesses that have a multi CDN provider setup is being able to investigate all of your stuff, right? So Srini, could you kind of like walk me through what real investigation looks like, or like what the first alert to finding the root cause is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can speak to it. I think the key thing is once you kind of really brought your data into one place, you can now at least have a single view to look across all the different CDNs, all the different host names that you're focused on. And I think that's again really just the entry point to being able to figure out that there might be an issue across your entire CDN landscape. And then from there, the dashboard and the set of tools that we've created basically help visually understand and help you understand that there might be an issue at different layers of your infrastructure. So being able to drill down, being able to see that the issue might be localized to a specific ASN or a specific POP, that there might be even being able to go down all the way to the raw logs, even lets you see that there might be a specific version of Android. If a certain set of Android users got a specific version, and they're the ones facing this issue because of some complicated niche rule, that's something that may not be obvious and immediately kind of apparent, especially when you're looking across a bunch of different tools. So I think the biggest thing that we're able to provide by having a shared view, by being able to drill down, by being able to use the hierarchy as well as the metaphors that you're most comfortable thinking in, I think goes a long way. And the second part too that we're also really excited about is I think dashboards are a very great way to identify anomalies and these kinds of things. But once your data is now in the same place, that's really when you can get really creative with using natural language, with using AI to help you find all the different needles in your haystack, basically. That it just makes it that much easier.
Yeah, I think that the lack of sampling that comes with Hydrolix data ingestion leads to our opportunities that Srini was just referencing, right? So when you are discarding 90% of your HTTP 200s and everything's okay with that, so we just need a little bit of that, and then retaining 100% of your errors, it's not always obvious that, oh, all of my errors are coming from Android, but is that 100% of the errors that are of 100% of my Android traffic, right? Maybe I threw away 90% and that contained a bunch of Androids that were having a great day. Or maybe 100% of my Android users are having these errors. And when you're sampling, you can't always just draw that information directly. But now you'd be able to show inside the Insights product, no, it's 100% of the requests for that user agent or for that CDN or for that city or for that country. And so you can compound those metrics on top of each other. And that's a superpower that's generated by an opportunity to look at where the problems aren't instead of just where the problems are.
Oh, that makes a ton of sense. I think one of the things that you guys had kind of talked about before is like normalizing the logs across all of the providers, right? As you said, they all speak different languages. The schemas are different. But can we speak to why normalizing those particular languages is really important and how it helps an ops team?
Sure. Yeah, I can start a little bit with that. Yeah, I think the biggest thing, what it practically means for an ops team is they can begin to have, as I mentioned earlier, really one place that they actually trust, right? So I think if you have a bunch of different CDNs, you not only have tool fragmentation, but you might be sampling at different rates at each of them. The problem that we just talked about, right? Like even understanding that there's like how do you even calculate an error rate for a cohort of your user base when it's across all these different CDNs and they're sampled differently, and maybe the error rate is even calculated differently across one provider, right? And I think by normalizing it, it really forces us to critically analyze every single column, the type, how they define certain metrics, like what's a cache hit versus a cache miss versus something in the middle. Every CDN talks about it differently. And so even if you're just relying on all of these independent tools, they all have slightly different interpretations. So being able to have everything in one place also really had forced us to think about what each concept in CDN observability really means, what each column really means. And it also means that when you're looking at a table, to some degree, you may be even able to find issues that are not specific to a CDN. You're actually able to treat your entire user base and look at it as one big table. There might be issues, again, this Android issue may not really be CDN specific, right? So imagine having to find that issue in 4 or 5 different tools. By having it normalized, you can almost ignore the CDN in some cases, or there's certain problems that will only arise by focusing more on just the fleet of users and the fleet of devices you have, somewhat independently of the CDN.
I think cache hit is the best demonstrator of what we're talking about here today. Ever since the concept of the CDN was invented, the concept of the cache hit came right behind it. And so it's been, 26, 28, 30 years, depending on who you ask, that we've had CDNs in existence. And you cannot, in fact, say that what CDN A says and CDN B says is a cache hit is being measured exactly the same way. And that's cache hit. So never mind the rest of the metrics that are less popular in using them. And so are you talking about edge hits, or are you talking about just traffic that never went to your origin? Or are you talking about this? Or are you talking about that? And so the opportunity to say that, no, this graph shows traffic that was served by a server that was not your origin. Okay, great. That's the cache hit I care about when I'm a streaming service provider. Boom. Okay, that's the graph. By being able to say, I know that their cache hit looks like it changed on their native graph, but I look over here and normalized, it's not a big deal compared to their competitors. Okay, cool. I'm going to relax on that error. And so this difference of definition is, I keep hammering on it, but difference of definition is one of the key places where the insights come through. And you can get down to that difference of definition mattering now that you actually already have 100% of the data and you have the opportunity to look at it. We don't really talk about difference of definition when it's compounded and hidden behind the fact that we don't have all of the data. You have to get all of the data first. It has to all be here first before you have to worry about what does it actually mean. And we've done all of those steps as part of CDN Insights.
Awesome. With that, in this latest update to CDN Insights, it went from 5 CDN supported to 11 CDN supported, now covering about 80% of global internet traffic. So what drove those specific additions, and what does each one kind of unlock?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Yeah, I think I think you buried the lead there a little bit. I mean, 80% I think is just very impressive. Like we're pretty much covering most of the CDN providers that play in the space for this. This basically means that for pretty much any customer out there, and again, whether they're using one of the 11 supported or all of them, even they know that they're going to be able to fire up the product, and almost in an afternoon, once they have logs being sent, they're going to see dashboards light up. It's going to serve as a foundation for being able to query with AI and many things down the road. And I think this is just something that, as far as we know, has just never really been done before. Like a single place, a single data fabric for this many CDNs support, I think is truly a really interesting leap in the industry. And of the 6 that we have, they all bring something unique to the table. First one, Google Media CDN is super compelling to us. Their basically taking all the team has learned serving YouTube, one of the most important video products and streaming services of our day, and basically making it more available to larger customers and other media and entertainment providers as well. And so you have all the same challenges. You still need to care about all the same things. And I think it's really great to be able to get that visibility from a company that has been a behemoth in this space. We have Imperva, which actually is a pretty interesting company. They've been known and focused a lot on their security products, their WAF products, and their bot manager products, but they also have a very underrated CDN that their customers absolutely adore and love as well. So also kind of an important player in the space, and we're excited to kind of support Imperva as well. Third, we have a pretty interesting company called IO which in some sense it isn't even a CDN at all. They're really more of a virtual CDN in that they actually are more of a CDN orchestration layer. So if you want to be multi-CDN, but you don't want to kind of manage all that infrastructure and complexity and observability yourself, you can work with IO and they'll kind of take on that challenge and kind of manage the underlying CDNs for you. And I think that's a really compelling, and it further drives home the need for multi-CDN observability because that's their entire kind of focus as a product. In addition, we also have Cashfly, which is also a player in the space they're really well known for their kind of white glove service and a really strong attraction with their customers. They've also been around for a long time and have been a big player in the space too. Next, we have Varnish, which is incredibly popular in the space. There's multiple CDNs who've actually been built entirely on a version of Varnish, the open source product that they've created. And so they are definitely the experts of kind of caching content and at scale and building the technology, so much so that other companies are reliant on it as well. So they have a number of products that we support as part of CDN Insights, Varnish Enterprise, and Aura Streaming. And lastly, we have ByPlus, which is a player in Asia, especially in China. And so being able to support ByteDance's CDN, again, further increasing just the markets that we support and giving observability to more CDNs that are out there.
Yeah, and that just, those new additions on top of Akamai and Fastly and Cloudflare and CloudFront and the larger players that were already in the system. But the important piece here is that, again, it's the age of AI. Everybody knows this. It takes the better part of 30 minutes to grab somebody's documentation and a couple of sample logs and put it into the system and be like, oh, Hydrolix supports their logs now. Like, that's not the impressive part here. The impressive part is the data normalization, the fact that the graphs are combined, the fact that you just say, oh, I have this CDN, and this CDN, and they populate directly into those graphs directly out of the box. And so Hydrolix supports, in the most basic sense of data can be sent here, any data source in the world. The question is, do we support it with our transforms out of the box going directly into pre-built dashboards that are ready, as Srini mentioned, in an afternoon to tell you exactly what you want to know? And so that is the really exciting part that you can get. And I know that the data stat is 80%, but when you look at the markets that are being served by the world's largest streaming providers, my gut feeling, not measured by anything else, but the CDNs that we're monitoring today are doing 95+% of those markets. I think it's regional players in terms of worldwide traffic that are shifting those numbers. But when you're looking at the regions where Hydrolix customers are serving data today, we have, I'll call it all with a small asterisk next to it, of the providers that are important to our customers.
Awesome. Kyle, you kind of already touched on this, but I would love for you to kind of go a little bit more in depth on this. And so if you had to sum up CDN Insights, what does it actually give back to people running these systems, just beyond dashboards? Like, what else can it do?
CDN Insights can give you peace of mind. CDN Insights, it can give you back time, and it can give you back an ulcer, if that's what you're working on farming one for yourself. Turn on CDN Insights, point all of your CDN data into it, and instantly see on a set of graphs, hey, all of these lights are green. And someone from Hydrolix is more than happy to explain light by light what each one of those green lights means. But we have put the time and the effort into making sure that a green light means everything's okay. And you can get there not in an 18-month data pipeline project, but in an 18-minute data source enablement project.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I mean, I think the customers that we've worked with so far have been amazed. I mean, the types of things that we can do in an afternoon can take months or years. You're talking about entire divisions, different data stacks, ingesting different types of logs from different CDNs and trying to resolve all of that. We have one big customer in that's, in migrating tools, and they're still juggling all these different data systems. And that's just the data, right? That's not even getting value out of it. That's not even being able to look at it within a few seconds and make a decision and, even predict that there might be an issue down the road. So there's going to be so many interesting new use cases and opportunities as well that we're going to uncover. Because up until now, I think a lot of people have just been holding their collective breath that, 15-minute observability is like fine, or they can just sample and kind of catch most of what's going on. But the second you have everything, I think we're going to see customers just coming with all types of interesting use cases and pain points that they didn't even know were possible, or that they were serving in some other suboptimal way. They can now just use the same data and expand to just solving way more of the problems that they're facing. So it's really an exciting thing for us.
At the risk of showing my age, we used to say that you needed monitoring that was faster than the tweet storm. Obviously, that's now called an X storm, but that's what CDN Insights provides, right? That the data is coming in and you can have it displayed on your dashboard before someone comes running in the room and says, has anyone checked Twitter? Has anyone checked X? We're doing terribly in, England. Now you can already be saying, hey, England looks a little sketchy. What's going on? Before your customers have picked up their phone and typed the complaint.
That's awesome. Well, you have answered all of my questions. We now know what to look forward to with everything on these dashboards, with everything from, like you said, white glove services and things like that. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you again.
Thanks, Josh. Always love it.
Okay.